Whole to order. Roll call, please.
Thompson.
Here.
Fergus.
Here.
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 And we have a quorum. First item on the agenda, we will welcome Samantha Van Wenchel-Meyer to give us an update on West Central Initiative. Good morning, Samantha.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I am, as Mayor Shire said, here to share updates from West Central Initiative and the work that we've been doing over the past year or so. Firstly, thank you for your ongoing partnership with West Central Initiative and your ongoing support. We, in your packets, have a new publication that we're kind of sharing today on our role as a regional development organization. So we've been in that role since 1995, but we haven't really talked about how West Central Initiative wears two hats and the unique way in which we do that. So we are a regional community foundation. You probably know us best for that. We are a nonprofit organization serving our community in economic, community, and workforce development. And we're also a regional development organization. As I said, that happened in 1995. So in 1972, the state created the Regional Development Commissions in our area. It was dissolved in 1982 because our area was not interested in working regionally. During that time that we didn't have a Regional Development Commission, we realized that we were missing out in our region on federal funds for infrastructure without having an RDC. And so the discussions began in 1991 on how we might bring those funds back into our region. And West Central Initiative was approached to take on that role. So 1995, we established that. So we're a little bit different than the Regional Development Commissions in that we also are a nonprofit organization. So we are a regional development organization. We cannot levy for tax support of the regional development work that we do because of our nonprofit status. We would have to relinquish that role to do so. As a part of our regional development organization work, we do have a regional development district board. Currently, Councilmember Rufer is a part of that board. Councilmember Hegberg was on that role previously. So we meet with them to work on things that are happening in our region and how we can support that. A big part of that role is also distributing state and federal funds to our region. So since August 2021 to July 2022, in that role, we distributed 29 COVID relief grants to Fergus Falls, totaling $305,000. So certainly during the pandemic, our role as a regional development organization was important to getting funds into our community. Under our economic development work, you also are probably familiar with our work in our loans program. We do gap financing to support businesses that maybe didn't get the full amount that they need from the bank to finish off their project. And we also do take on some riskier loans and do a full loan for businesses too that may not be able to get the bank's support. In that same time period, August 2021 to July 2022, our loans to Fergus Falls community were $202,550. We have additional grant programs that fall under our community development work. So during COVID, we did fundraising to provide Resiliency Fund grants to our communities. And 7 of those grants went to Fergus Falls community, totaling $65,000. Our total grant distribution in that time period to Fergus Falls community was $700,454.39. So that's over various different programs, including those deed programs, our early childhood initiative programs, our community fund programs, which is another piece of our work that falls under our community development. I think the first sheet on the right-hand side of your packet behind the little booklet is our impact sheet. It shares the various community groups that we work with in our community fund program. And so that's a lot of our work under our community development, including our early childhood work. We have coordinators in each of our counties. Katie Ganoa of Otter Cove is the representative, our early childhood coordinator for Otter Tail County. We also, under both of our hats, a lot of this kind of crosses over between the two hats that we wear. But we have our transportation planning programming. So in the recent times here, Wayne, Hurley, and crew worked on safe routes to school plans and some technical assistance for active transportation. In the early childhood work, Clara Beck and First Children's Finance and West Central Initiative are working on rural child care initiative innovation grants. And then the Pioneer Child Care Capacity Grant, you may be familiar with the recent developments there, did come through West Central Initiative as well. So that's what we've been up to recently, and we have a couple of other updates on things that we're working on. We are currently doing some assessments on infrastructure resiliency. We have a survey, it may be in your packet, we ran out of some of those flyers. We have a survey on climate change and how it's impacting our communities within your folder or at our website, wcif.org. So we're trying to get input on that. And then as a part of our local foods work that we've recently taken on, we did fundraising to plant apple trees in each of our 82 communities. So if you are interested, we would like to give you 2 apple trees to plant in a public space. They would be edible apples that folks could walk up and grab something to eat. And we don't have a specific time frame on that, so you can decide and let us know when it works out in your project plans too. That is all for updates from me. I would love if you have any questions to hopefully answer those.
No questions, but I just confirmed with Guy, we'll take 2 of those apple trees.
Perfect. Love it.
Not in your yard.
Not in my yard. Right here at City Hall somewhere. Any questions for Samantha? Well, we again appreciate the update and thanks for the continued partnership and all the work that you're doing in the region, but especially in our community. We feel the impact, and so we say thank you, Samantha.
Thank you, and thank you for all your service and your hard work to our community.
Thanks. Thank you. All right, next up on the agenda is a compensation study, and we'll call on Human Resources Director Mike Hartwell.
Good morning, members of council. Thank you for having me this morning. The city has embarked in an in-depth compensation study that we started back in February, and I sent you out a copy of the actual detailed report. All of you should have received in your email, which really goes into a deep dive. That report will also be sent out to our business agents and also to our union stewards here at the end of the week here for them to review. But I want to do a high-level review of what the findings were of the study. So if we can refer to the presentation here, we basically partner with Gallagher Benefit Services. Gallagher is a professional compensation classification data analytics company that is a third party that we conducted this survey with. The primary objectives were to ensure competitiveness within the external market, to ensure fair and equitable compensation relationships within our organization, and also to maintain our pay equity compliance with the state of Minnesota. Gallagher selected 29 counties. They actually submitted and sent surveys off to 45. Out of 45 various municipalities and counties, 29 actually participated. Additional market data was collected from published survey sources that represent both public and private sector market. This custom survey also was designed to develop current pay practice, base pay, and salary range information. The outside services or actual comparables were from Willis Towers Watson Surveys, Mercer, Comp Data Surveys, and Economic Research Institute. Those are national surveys. So what Gallagher did is they took national data, they took county, municipality, local data, they compressed it all into recommendations to the city. Overall, the city's base pay and range midpoints were highly competitive within the comparable labor market at the 50th percentile. The 50th percentile is important because that is where a healthy organization should pay to that 50th percentile. And so you're going to see in some future slides that our trend line, that the new proposed matrix is based off of this new trend line. Okay? And what they basically consider is any position that's plus or minus within 5% deviation from the trend line is considered right on the mark. So right now our positions A11, A12, A13, and B21 all are on trend. There is some minor separation starting at our B23 to E84 positions. And so right now you're probably saying, what is that? Well, we have a matrix that starts from A to E, and all of our positions are banded in that matrix, which includes 9 steps of pay increases. That's what this is referring to, is a rebalance of that matrix. Overall, the city's base pay was highly competitive within the market in all consistent ways that was surveyed, and the city's salary midpoints were highly competitive for A and B bands, but less competitive for C, D, and E bands. So what's it look like from a visual standpoint? If you look at this trend line and you look at the dotted line going up the middle, that is the market 50th percentile. That's where we are, or should be, rebalanced to. And if you look at the bottom dotted line, that's the current city compensation. So if you're starting from your A bands to your E bands, you see that there's some drift there. It's relatively tight, A, B, B3, C4, but then we start to drift on those upper bands. And we're drifting out of that 5% that they recommend we move on. So if we're out of that 5% of deviation, we need to make some adjustments. So if you look on the A, B, B3, C4, we're relatively tight, so that's why they recommend no changes there. That is still competitive nationally and regionally. Okay. Next slide. So recommendations, or the matrix rebalance that Gallagher has proposed to us, is using this regression model trend line, getting us back to that dotted 50th percentile. Implementation that they recommend is current midpoints from A11 to B22 were higher than the new midpoints predicted by the trend. They recommend keeping the current ranges for A11, B2, and B22 in the same structure. So no changes there. They also did an evaluation for our public safety positions, and those current ranges for public safety classifications are above the market median pay ranges. They also recommend keeping the current ranges and steps the same for public safety positions. Number 3, they propose lifting employees, in other words, all others below the trend line, which was indicated in that chart, to the next closest step, 223 for B23 to E84 positions. So there's going to be a minor bend from that deviation back to the trend line. And what that lift cost would be just in wages is $106,842. If you add the contributions to payroll, that's another $10,000. Medicare's $1,600 or so, and FICA is close to $6,000. Total impact is $124,587.24 to get us back to that 50th percentile. If you look at what that equates to hourly increases, it's anywhere from 4 cents per hour up to $1.77 per hour to get them back to that trend line. So today I'm presenting this information for you. You have the more detailed version of the study. I welcome phone calls from you. At the next council meeting, we're going to be bringing this to you only to approve accepting this report. Not taking action at that point, just accepting the report so it's officially accepted, and then we'll have more discussions because, as you know, this is certainly going to involve the budgeting process and so forth. Next slide. And that's kind of what our new matrix will look like, and I know it's kind of Greek to you that don't look at this every day. But there on the left margin is your DBM ratings that we are all classified in, and those DBM ratings were all checked by Gallagher. Every job description was rewritten, sent in for them. There was a full scrubbing of those. So all of them are up to speed and accurate to today's job responsibilities. And those are the hourly wages all the way up to step 9. And if you wonder what that range spread column is, that is 30%, 40%, 50%. What that takes into consideration is the skill set and education for those positions. Typically, as you go down the DPM listing, the education and requirements for certain skills and or other experiences go up. So there's an increased value there as well. Questions?
Thanks for that information, Mike. Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
In the world of acronyms, what does DBM stand for?
That is a great question. I don't know, Scott. I'd have to get back to you. That's just the acronym they use for those job positions.
Okay, thanks.
If you really want to know, I'll get you that information.
Yes, Justin.
A lot of good info, thanks, Mike. The question that, so coming before the council to approve the report, and then would it just be effective if it moved forward or was approved? This would be built in the budget for 2023?
That's correct. We're currently building into the budget, and that would be presented once we get those final numbers put together.
Sounds good, thanks.
Decision band method.
There you go.
DBM's that's right.
That's their own internal acronym.
Anything else from the council? So again, we're going to be accepting this report at a future council meeting and then considering it as part of any future budget considerations for 2023. Everyone all right with that? Any questions? Any input from anyone else?
Maybe we can send it out, but I'd be kind of curious as to how many hourly and sort of like salaried people we have currently.
We have 123 full-time employees. Of 123, I would say currently 85 to 90 are hourly employees. The remaining are salaried.
Thanks.
And then we have an additional 40 or 50 seasonal, temporary. They're all hourly as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike. Next item on the agenda is an airport lobby.
Let's get a motion moving this to council for Monday night.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second
I'll a motion to accept this report from Gallagher to the council on Monday night. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side. That motion carries. Thank you again, Mike. Okay, we'll call on our city engineer, Brian Ubarro. Good morning, Brian, to talk to us
morning, Your
about
Honor,
our
and-
airport lobby remodeling project.
Good morning, Your Honor, and members of the council. Recently received a proposal from Sky Cruise. They're requesting to remodel the AD building, the arrival departure terminal building lobby that's city owned. Sky Cruise's proposal generally consists of the following. They're requesting that they will pay for all the construction, including materials, labor, for the remodel of the lobby. In exchange, they're requesting to receive a $400 rent credit for the remainder of their contract. Basically 5 years, and this is per what Sky Cruise is indicating. They indicate this will come out to about $24,000 of credit. They believe this is about 50% of the total construction cost if this was hired out. This excludes the bathrooms, and in turn, Sky Cruise is requesting the city pays for new flooring, electrical, and plumbing associated with this request. Since I received this, I first and foremost have to determine what the city costs would be per what this proposal consists of. I solicited local contractors for construction estimates and also requested a lot more detailed information to support Sky Cruise financial request. I've attached a spreadsheet that we can go over that includes anticipated work scope and with estimated cost for reference. I just want to note all work is to be done in accordance with local building code. So if you turn to the cost breakdown, I kind of have two tables, one above each other right now. The top table is summarizing what Sky Cruise understanding, and you can see that under notes what includes materials, doors, service desk, paint, sheetrock, furniture, counters, sink, TVs, doorknobs, etc. With the estimated labor and construction costs that Sky Cruise has provided, they're estimating their cost share to be about $52,000. However, the reimbursement is $24,000 once again. Now, if you go to the table just below that, I'm estimating what they consist of: plumbing, electrical, flooring, Have a few miscellaneous notes, but I'm estimating our cost, the city cost, if acceptable, would be on the order of $32,700. So with the $24,000 rent credit and the estimated city construction cost share, that's about $57,700. I just wanted to note with what they have provided, the current agreement between the city and Sky Cruise, if not renewed, it will expire June 30th, 2024. So that's approximately 22 months from September 2022 to June 30th, 2024. 60 months versus 22 months, what the actual contract says, if not renewed. Sky Cruise, I have talked with them, spoke with them about that. They're requesting if their contract is not renewed, that they would be paid in whole for their $24,000. However, once again, this is a proposal. It's up for discussion with this council. Budgetary impact, like I noted, the city share is about $57,700. This is not fully funded. We do have the ability to use some maintenance and operations when applicable. That's what we're looking at, so just some electrical work, some plumbing. However, the flooring, to best of my knowledge, which is the highest dollar amount for city share, about $21,500, is there's no funding source. The airport fund 456, which is a capital improvement, there is not sufficient funds to proceed with that. If you turn to the last page of the attachment, we kind of have some sources of uses, what we have in the 456 fund. I listed what we have total resources, but what we do have some active projects: public improvement 9349, the apron joint repairs, 9348, the fuel system replacements or partial, public improvement 9350, the AWAS, and public improvement 9351, the ILS replacements. So with our projected annual levy and our cash balance in this fund, we're estimating with all these projects, if they proceed, including the lobby remodel, about a $220,000 shortfall. I just want to note, the fuel system replacement being our highest local share. We're still finalizing plans and going out for bid. We have not approved this until we get actual numbers. All of these remaining projects will have to fit accordingly. And obviously, if we don't have funds, we'll provide a recommendation what we're going to do with these projects. I do have calls into the state in regards to some of these projects, especially the fuel system, and what we can do with the funds that have been encumbered with this project. But I'm waiting for a response to see what our options are. So I'm just exploring options at this time. So I just want to know, representative from Sky Cruise was going to be here, but he was unable to make it. I'm speaking kind of on their behalf right now. But just with some of the moving components and everything, the recommendation is to authorize staff to develop a development agreement between the city and Sky Cruise that, if drafted, acceptable, will be presented back to the city council for final approval. But at this time, I just want to open up to any questions you might have on this topic.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So that service agreement, that agreement would come back to the council, like you mentioned, so we'd have a chance to look at the details. Couple questions. So the estimated costs for the reconstruction, are those your numbers or those Sky Crew numbers?
They provided some that I summarized in that one table.
Yep. But you've looked through them and you've kind of verified, or you feel
Yes.
comfortable with the numbers
Yes.
as presented?
More so, I went through the city share and talked to some local contractors to get some budgetary estimated costs.
And then in this service contract, or service agreement, whatever it's called, development agreement, sorry, does the city still retain some sort of, it's still a publicly owned building and asset? So if do we still retain the ability to make sure that the materials are up to a certain standard and the construction and the work is up to a certain standard? There'll be something in the development agreement, I assume?
Yes, it has to meet all applicable building codes.
For
And it
an
will
airport,
be.
obviously, there's certain standards, and not questioning that it wouldn't be, but just to think it's in the city's interest to make sure that. And then the other thing, the last question I have is, you mentioned there's a 5-year contract with Sky Crew Services, right? And there's a $400, is 3 years left, is that right?
Yes, yeah, good point. That this 5-year, this is pretty much verbatim from Sky Cruise.
Okay.
So I've clarified that with them, providing that information on note. So if the contract's not renewed, the actuality is it's 22 months right now.
Got it.
if not renewed. So it could be an option, I could imagine in a developer's agreement, if it's drafted and everything, that the city could obviously say, perhaps we'll give you the $400 rec credit and not exercise it. If the contract's not renewed, we'll give you up to 5 years, or perhaps not make it whole. I guess it's incentivize the contract, Sky Cruise to maintain their agreement with the city. But
So-
those are all little components that we
Sure.
would,
But it's a $24,000 total. It's not ongoing rent credit
they want to be $24,000 in whole. So
Sure.
the term of to be whole is to be determined.
Yes, Bill.
And just thinking out loud a little bit, I think if we were going to go into something like this, like you said, some of those are their numbers, so maybe we set, this is what the city would do. And I'm not too crazy about the rent credit, especially since, it's not for sure about that extension of that term to the 5 years they're talking about. So I don't really like the city being indebted to someone that's managing the city's assets. So I think if it's a project that should be done, then the city should do that. We don't need to probably do a rent credit. We should determine if we can afford that. And there was something else I was thinking, but it'll come back.
Are those things that we can work with through the developers agreement policy? Yeah, Anthony?
The $400 rent credit, when that's them, obviously what they're paying us today, they pay us, say, $1,000, and then we're going to say, right, instead of paying us $1,000, you only pay us $600. Right.
Right.
Correct.
Any other questions? Yeah, Scott?
The plan that's pictured in the packet here appears to be just for the upper floor. Is this work supposed to just be the upper floor, or is it the lower level as well?
The image you have in front of there, Mr. Kwame, that is for the lower level lobby.
So is there any work then being done for the upper floor? If I'm
There
picturing
is
this wrong.
minor work as far as some panel replacements and everything, but that's not a component of it. So there's obviously some other work, but trying to just define the scope for what is requested action, and that consists of the lower lobby, the main entrance to the building.
Okay.
It seems to me, Brent, one second. It seems to me like it's a good project. I appreciate the fact that we're looking to make investments in the airport. There seems to be a good, healthy relationship between city staff and the Sky Crew. So there also seems to be maybe some questions about how we finance a project like this, but that can all be discussed and worked out in a developer's agreement that's brought back to the city. Is anyone opposed to the project? I would figure out a way to.
So basically, if for some reason their contract does not get extended, and we're basically saying that we wouldn't have the funding available in order to do what they request on paying off the rest?
So that list of projects that Brian went through, we haven't approved all those projects. You haven't as a council. So certainly, if you didn't do some of the other projects, there's funding available. But when you look at them all, is what Brian is saying, then we have to figure out how do we fund that $222,000 gap if we do the fuel system, if we do the landing system updates.
But I'm assuming the other ones are a little bit more important than the remodeling of a lobby?
I would agree. They're airside needs. They are definitely airside needs. I will note the lobby remodel has been on the airport capital improvement plan for over a decade. We have looked for state aid assistance with that. However, they were just it never ranked high enough to get any funds to proceed with it. So there has been some discussion at past airport board meetings, trying to take a local approach towards doing this lobby remodel. And that's, I guess, what I would consider this right here, what we see.
And with that too, just maybe to add, and I could be completely wrong, but I feel like the list of projects that are on there that we haven't found funding is typically grant eligible or state aid that we've used in the past. Has that always been local dollars we've had to budget to pay for, the fuel system and the AWAS and.
It's, okay, for the fuel system, yes, you're correct. It's a portion of the total cost. The fuel system is somewhat unique. It's a 70-30 ratio, like a lot of state projects. However, when you're dealing with that large amount, the 30% on the local share, 456 fund that covers that. It's pretty considerable.
Right.
But we, like I said, we're hopefully going out for bids to get some actual true costs. We recently did a redesign to go just a 100 low lead replacement underground. Hopefully there's some cost savings so we can maximize the $600,000, but that's still yet to be determined.
But to your point, I think a lot of those projects, at least the way I envision, this is more of probably harder to get funding for, and so we have to look internally to pay for it. Whereas the other projects, they kind of happen as funding becomes available by the state and.
Correct.
And
Everything in general, Councilmember Arneson, is with the airport, it's really defined when the FAA or state looks at it, they really give a higher priority to airside needs versus revenue generating facilities, they call them. I'm not considering this lobby revenue generating, but in between there. But limited funds, but that's where they rank all the airside needs first.
Which takes us back to the partnership, and I appreciate the fact that Sky Crew and staff is working to find a way to do, because it's not an essential air service or whatever the term is, the air side, but it's something that, makes an airport, people have an option where they go to the airport. So, I think that it's in the benefit of the people who run the airport too, to have more traffic. And so finding a way to do some of these improvements is important. So I appreciate the work that the staff.
I think it's pretty basic out of the airport. So I think if we can find a way to spruce it up in a relatively kind of economical way, I think it would be worthwhile.
I agree. So at this point, I think
And
you're
they're
just looking
giving-
for a recommendation
giving a
to
lot of
allow
help to
yourself
us.
to
I mean, if that number.
work with them to come up with a development agreement that'll come back to the council.
Correct.
Is that acceptable with everyone? To find a way that everyone's comfortable with how this is financed and what the mechanisms are? Scott?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with your question as far as the mechanism and all that. A little bit about the process, I guess, is curious to me, though. If we were going to, as a council, decide to go and build something, we would have input from architects, developers, designers, whatever, and then we would have pretty detailed plans to look over as far as the kind of fit and finish of all the products that are going to be used and all that kind of thing. We don't have that in this case. We've got a proposal coming from the people that are going to be in the middle of it, saying that they'd like to do it. And, to that effect, it probably saves us some money, and that might be fine. On the other hand, had we seen some proposals that were developed by, say, an architect or somebody that these guys then could either bid on to do the work, or others could also bid on to do the work, I think that would be more typical. If we were going to come up with a plan ourselves and then have bidders or proposals, for who to do it, we would have choices of, who we would select to do the work. I don't have any reason to think these guys wouldn't do a decent job. It just seems a little bit out of the ordinary as far as our process to just get a proposal from one and go with that and not have some other process involved to get other builders or other input on it. And then as far as the plans themselves, I guess I would like to see some more details to this before we'd approve going forward to it. I know you're not at that point yet, but any building project I've seen, you always see what it's going to be and find out what kind of finishes are going to be used, what kind of products are going to be involved in it, and don't just assume it's going to be good. You find out ahead of time. So I would want to see that kind of stuff before we go forward.
Thanks, Scott. I think it's a valid point. Like, again, back to my point, we want to make sure that we have a public asset here, that we're making, that we have some sort of assurance that it's going to be up to standards for a public building and for an airport. Is that something that can be worked out in a developer's agreement?
I believe so. They're probably, we don't have the capabilities in-house, so they provided a rendering that I included in the packet. I have had the building official and me and staff already kind of review, especially when it comes to the city, when it comes to plumbing. Okay, what is that work scope and everything? So yes, architect and everything is going to be associated fee with this and everything, but I don't have the capabilities beyond that to get that detailed information, other than working with staff and them directly on, I guess, somewhat of a minor remodel project. I'm considering this.
Justin?
And maybe I'll just add, I don't disagree necessarily, but if we look at like Broadway, we did the bathrooms, and we've done other stuff within the community that we haven't mean, this is the airport, I understand, so it's a little different comparable, but, you know, I think city staff has done a lot of stuff in the community that we haven't went out for bids and did all that. But again, it's a little different because it is an official building, but I'm comfortable with, as long as staff's comfortable moving forward with what you're requesting, and you'll be coming before us with more information, with more details when we make a final decision as a council. But I think it's great they're willing to invest. Obviously, clearly they're putting a lot of time more in and only asking for a portion of that back, so they obviously see the importance of it, because they're not asking for the $52,000 in, you know, reimbursement. So, and we're going to have some ability to pick and pay for what's going in there. So I think it's a great opportunity to spruce up the airport a little bit. Timing makes sense, obviously, and we can come up with funds to do it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it's a valid project. There's valid concerns. We appreciate the work that this group is doing. So let's bring back a development agreement, and some of these questions hopefully can be answered. If we generate them, we can discuss them at that time. Is that fair enough? Then would someone like to make a motion that we direct staff to work with them on a development agreement on this project?
I'll make that
Thanks,
motion, Your
Justin.
Honor.
I'll second.
Thanks, Chris. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a sales tax ballot question update, and we'll call on our city administrator, Andrew Bremseth. Morning.
Morning. Good morning, Your Honor, committee members. Thank you. This is the last time you're going to see me on this item, so I know we've talked about it at length, and I think that's good as we continue to clear up any confusion and ensure folks are informed and aware of what's happening. So just a few minor changes from last Monday when we talked about, was it last Monday? As recent as that? We did include the location, Roosevelt Park, within the Aquatic Center at the suggestion of Councilmember Hicks. I think that's a good addition to that question. There's been a lot of confusion between this Aquatic Center project and the splash pad that's being proposed downtown as part of Phase 2. So this should clear that up. The proposed aquatic center is in Roosevelt Park, and it says as much in the ballot question. The other changes that we made were to I'll show you my red line version. It's this little paragraph right here above the ballot questions, and that's just to simplify. It now reads, to vote in favor of a question below, fill in the oval next to the word yes. To vote against a question below, fill in the oval next to the word no. So really simple.
What if you're not sure?
That's on you.
Half of each.
Yeah. So
Sorry, not
this
fun.
is in final form unless there's last second changes. I will just mention, I talked about at the council meeting last week trying to address the 2037 question. That language until December 31st, 2037 comes directly from the legislation that was approved. We kind of planned a worst case scenario, a very conservative estimate. If both of these projects were approved, we built ourselves enough years to make sure we more than could collect in case there was a downturn in the economy or collection slowed. So I would just point out, both of them say or until the capital amount plus an amount equal to interest and cost of issuance are included. So if the amount that's actually needed to fund the bonds related to the project, this tax would end at that time, so significantly earlier than 2037. So there was no other way to put it. We just need to, I think, when we put out FAQs and we continue to educate folks on what the implications of this are, we just need to be crystal clear that that date is in there because it matches the legislation, but the tax goes away once the amount needed is collected. And of course, if that's only on one project, that amount is going to be shorter. If it's on two, it'll be a little bit longer, depending on which one is successful. So just wanted to mention that. And then again, to reiterate, I've talked about this before, but it's a 0.5% sales tax, whether one of them's approved or both of them's approved. It does not become 1% if both of them are approved. So it's a 0.5%. The number of years that's collected is what would shift if both of them were to be successful. So this is in final form. On Monday night, we'll be asking you to approve the resolution that's within the packet. And I will not be present Monday night, so if we can put it on consent, I would appreciate it. If not, my colleagues here will be able to answer any questions you have. But I need this to be in final form so we can get it to the county auditor 16th, which is the day after our meeting on Monday night.
Generally, yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I'm not sure when our communication person starts, but the sooner the better. Because I think the other kind of thing is clarifying that they are independent of each other too. That, you know, you can vote for one, other, or both.
Yep.
And you can vote differently in them. And I think there's some confusion of people I've spoken to about, you know, they might like A over B, but they kind of think that they can only vote yes for both of them or no for both of them.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Good point. I will say this, the communications, we're interviewing today and tomorrow, so that should be sooner than later. Our goal is somebody starting right after Labor Day, and this will be the first assignment for that person is going to be putting together factual information that addresses the confusion, addresses questions, and also just pushes out factual information so folks know exactly what they're voting for. They're going to see the renderings of D Lagoon Park and what the improvements are and where they're located. They're going to see where the aquatic center is going to be located in Roosevelt Park and what the amenities are. So that is priority number one as somebody comes in that role and hits the ground running, because November is going to be here before we blink. But well understood. As you hear feedback, as you're out there, if there's confusion points, let us know so we can add those to an FAQ and we can address those. Because our goal as a city at the end of the day is to make sure people are fully informed and making their own decision on these questions. It's not to promote one or the others.
Are we looking at doing a bill stuffer?
It would be premature for me to answer that. I don't know.
Okay.
That could be one of the strategies deployed. This new person coming in is going to develop the strategy on the fly, and then we're going to run with it between September and November.
So we look for,
Any
go ahead.
clarification right on Anthony's question? Election judges will be trained on how to tell people how to fill the ballot. They will have that choice, and they can do one or two or none, depending on their choice. So, but they'll have that training as well.
Thanks.
So, yeah, we look forward to getting the factual, accurate information out to all the voters. In the meantime, we got to make sure that this language by Monday is the way it's set to be, correct?
This is what it's going to be.
This is
There'll
good.
be
So
no
if anyone has any questions about this language, make sure that you bring that up before Monday, because once it's voted on Monday, it's going to the auditor, I assume, right?
Yeah, and then that is, as we submit it, it's the exact language that will be on the ballot. There's not the ability to change that.
Okay. So do we have a
I'll make that motion.
I don't
motion to-
necessarily need, you can do that.
We'll bring it
yeah.
to the, at this time, we'll bring it as a consent agenda item. If anyone has any changes to it before Monday, make sure that you let staff know so we can address that Monday night. But right now, I have a motion to bring it to the council Monday.
I'll second that.
Justin, any questions? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion carries. Yes, Bill?
If you do have questions, if you think you have some questions, let us know this week if you can, because we typically have to go back to our bond attorney and work with them. So if a question comes up Monday night and we have to get it there Tuesday, it would be difficult to work through the attorneys with it.
Yeah,
I
there's
think
about
it's-
6 sets of eyes anytime we make even adding a comma. So make sure we have time to do that.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, Andrew. Next, we will call on Fergus Falls HRA Director Michael Olson to talk to us about the tax levy request for 2023. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, council members. Good morning, staff. Thank you for giving me some time to visit with you this morning. Before I get started, can I walk up and handle a little packet to everybody? I've got some information here. I thought maybe I just-
Absolutely.
Do it for you too.
Would you really? I'll bundle up one for everyone. Thank you. Okay, so diving right in here. The packets in front of you, I've got a little bubble diagram here that just highlights some of our program areas. And I thought perhaps as we start the conversation about requesting our available levy for 2023, I would talk a little bit about the programming that we rely on with other funding mechanisms and what that provides to the city of Fergus Falls. In the top left corner, taking a look at our rental assistance program, if we take a look there, for the fiscal year ending 6/30/2022, Section 8, or Housing Choice Voucher Program, which also includes the Mainstream Voucher Program, brought a total of $824,720 to the city of Fergus Falls. Of that total, through the Section 8 program, $659,554 was money paid directly to landlords in the city of Fergus Falls on behalf of the tenants that we assist. The Mainstream program was a application process that we went through just a little more than a year ago. We have 40 new rental vouchers in that program, and as you can see, it's $69,998 additional dollars came to Fergus Falls in federal funds to assist in that program. We have 147 current participants on the Section 8 program. We have 27 current participants on the Mainstream program, just about 200 people on that waiting list. So, depending on attrition within those programs, waiting lists for assistance in these programs right now is averaging about 2 months. It can, I would say, historical average there is probably closer to about a 6-month wait. So there's a lot of activity right now. Things are moving quickly. People that need assistance, if they get their applications in and their paperwork, we can usually help pretty quickly right now. Looking across, starting left to right, on the bottom of the page and working across, Timber Place Townhomes is a 20-unit tax credit townhome building that was built in 1996. We have 4 2-bedroom units up there, 16 3-bedrooms up there. There's minimum and maximum income limits to be a tenant in that building, and rents are established through our compliance with Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. So a 2-bedroom up there rents at $660 a month, a 3-bedroom up there rents at $760 a month. The HRA pays water, sewer, garbage. Tenants are responsible for gas, electric, cable, etc. I'm going to skip rehab for a minute and come back because I just want to talk primarily right now about the units that we own, manage, or provide assistance in. We also have 60 units of public housing in Fergus, 68 units of public housing in Fergus Falls. 60 of those units are at Riverview Heights. Those are all 1-bedroom units. And then we have 4 duplexes scattered around town. So we have 8 total 3-bedroom scattered family sites. HUD allows us to set a minimum rent of $50, and we have a maximum rent of $500, which is a flat rate rent for those folks that are earning the upper end of our income limits. Just did a little math this morning here to get an idea across the board for public housing units. Average rent per month is about $330 from participants that live in those units. And if I jump back to the Section 8 program, just as a comparison, the funds that we spend on behalf of those tenants renting from private landlords, average housing assistance payment there is about $374 a month right now. So tenants are responsible for a portion of their rent, and the programming pays the other portion. We've talked an awful lot the last couple of years about our permanent supportive housing project, Garrett's Grove. I have a meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock with Minnesota Housing, and I'm very, very hopeful that we have a closing date announced at tomorrow's meeting with MHFA. So visiting with our architect and co-developer, general contractor, we're still optimistic that we can be breaking ground this fall and moving along there. We're anticipating a 12 to 14 month build. So 24 new units of permanent supportive housing online sometime later fall 2023. Back to the rehab programming just quickly here. We have some programs that are open in Fergus Falls, some that rely on revolving funds, some that rely on grant applications. The rental rehab revolving program is a fund that was established years ago with some local funds. That's a revolving program. We have funds available for local landlords there, so if we have folks that are looking for some below market rate dollars that they can use to rehab their units, no closing costs, good terms. We have an open Minnesota deed grant in the city of Fergus Falls right now. We're still down in the neighborhood surrounding the hospital, so Vernon to Channing, Arlington to Oak. Our goal is to rehab 20 homes in that neighborhood. COVID has set us back on our scheduling a little bit, so we've recently requested an extension. We'll be working down in that neighborhood through June of '23 with Minnesota DEED approval. We applied for a grant with the Federal Home Loan Bank a couple of years ago, and that provides some additional dollars to help those homeowners in that Minnesota DEED grant neighborhood with some additional financing. And the last one here is Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, the ELP or RLP program. Those acronyms stand for Emergency Loan Program or Rehab Loan Program. Those pots of money provide dollars for applicants to make improvements to their properties. The income limits are extremely low to qualify for Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, but those dollars are always available. We maintain a waiting list for folks within the city limits of Fergus Falls, and the programs offer $37,500 per qualifying applicant to make improvements to their property. Those notes are held in the form of a deferred loan, which if there's no change in title or ownership in 15 years, that loan will be forgiven for those borrowers. So some very good programming. Most of the information I provided in your packet this morning is information that we make available in our lobby for folks that stop in to take a look. One of the items that I would maybe call attention to is the last, I think it was the last document in the packet, and it just kind of has a list of contact information for folks to help them coordinate additional assistance. So annually, we reach out to all of the folks that we've listed on here and just said, hey, you know, there's no mandate to maintain this list, but we feel that you know, there's always cracks in the system, so to speak. People are always looking for, you know, maybe other assistance besides just housing or what have you. So we provide these resources. We talk with the folks that are on here and make sure that they want to be on here and update contact information and get out to help people make those contacts. And it certainly does seem to help. So as always, we appreciate the assistance. Circling back, I guess, here to the big focus of today's conversation, the tax levy that we request from the city is a big part of our annual budget. The dollars that Housing and Urban Development provides us for the management of the Section 8 voucher program, or public housing for that matter, the programming dollars are, in my opinion, adequate. We seem to be within our capabilities meeting the needs in the community. I would say, looking at a 200-person waiting list for housing choice vouchers, if there was an application process for additional vouchers, I would be making it right now. The application we made a year and a half ago for the mainstream vouchers was one of the first applications available for additional vouchers that we've had come across the desk for a long time, so that was a good opportunity for us. The tax levy dollars are very needed dollars for our agency in terms of meeting the requirements of our budget from start to finish. So I guess one note that I think is relevant today, having been through the recent conversations on tax values increasing over the past several months, it ties directly back to our ability to levy. So looking at estimates from 2022 collections to 2023 available, it would appear that the potential increase for the HRA levy year over year is about a 10% increase if the HRA were allowed to levy 100% of the available. That does provide a very small surplus in the budget that I've prepared, and what I would anticipate at this point is working through our board or through some direction with City Council to take a look at the potential for development of new programming. We created a set of guidelines to try to offer a down payment assistance program within the city limits of Fergus Falls. Funding the program right now is kind of the sticking point, but we're working that direction. So with that, and in the interest of everyone's time this morning, if there's questions, I'd be happy to try and answer.
Thank you, Michael. Well, that brings us, yes, Scott.
One question for you, Michael. I don't expect that you would be prepared to answer this, but if you have a chance and want to look into it and follow up sometime, that'd be great. But you mentioned there's an average waiting list of 2 to 6 months for various housing placements. So there's turnover as people come and go from these programs, and to what degree that turnover is people, in these programs for a window of time, and then they move into what would be considered market rate housing, and then that space opens up, someone else comes in. I'd be curious to know how long people typically would be in. I mean, do people come into one of these rental assistance programs, and stay there for decades? Or are they there for, a couple years, and then they're in a different position and are able to move to market rate? The idea, I guess I'm just wondering to what degree this kind of support or this kind of assistance becomes, a lifetime subsidies for people, or if it's at least to some degree transitional. And, there's probably more detail in that than you can answer, and I'm not looking for a long answer, but.
It's an excellent question, and it's difficult to answer. I would say our average attrition rate, looking at just the voucher programming, year after year, we average 36 to maybe low 40s. 3 to 4 people per month would be our typical off the program attrition. Looking at the public housing programs, boy, that varies widely. We've had tenants that have been there for a year, and we've had tenants that have been there. You can think of a move out that occurred. It's been 4 or 5 years ago, but we had a tenant that was in that unit for 23 years. On the voucher program, same thing. We have people that go through job loss or failed relationships, and we find people are using that very much as a transition from one life situation to the next. And of course, we have families where we might have 2 or 3 generations of families that have been receiving assistance for years. So it would be difficult without really digging into a census report and digging in to see, how long each participant has been on. It's a very wide range of lengths of time, ages, incomes, you name it.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Michael? Yeah, Anthony?
It's not so much a question. I think it's tremendous work that you do and your organization. And I think it's a very necessary, part of our society. So I thank you for kind of like what, your staff for what they do, every day. Because I know that sometimes, some of the people that come in are stressed. So I think, your organization takes a buffer for society and hopefully get people into that transitional place where they can move on and have a good life. So take the message back to thank the staff for what they do every day. Because I know some of them have tenants or people that look for rent that get frustrated when they don't get the answers they want.
No doubt. Thank you.
100% agree. Thanks for those comments, Anthony. And I would say that if we do, as we've done in the past, which will look for a recommendation to the council of doing that tax levy, if there is an opportunity for the council in January to discuss, like you said, the down payment assistance or some of these things that we've have wanted to provide to the community but haven't had a chance to, would that be the proper time after sometime in January as you look towards when you know that what that actual amount is?
Certainly.
Would someone like to make a
I'll make that
recommendation?
motion.
Thank you.
I would second it.
Motion to bring this to the council on Monday night. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
And with that, Lynn, do you have any updates you'd like to give on just the filing period runs through August 16th at
Tuesday, but I just would really like to thank all the people that came out to vote yesterday and thank the 40-plus judges that we had, some of who worked 16-hour days and turn around and come here the next morning. But we are very, very thankful for all the election judges and for the community to come out and support just tentatively about 25% voter turnout, which we had 4% that received primaries. So we were very, very pleased with the amount of people that came out, and we look forward to way bigger crowds in November.
As always, Lynn, thanks to you for all your work on the elections to make sure that they go seamlessly as they do. And with that, we're adjourned.